Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world. The Supreme Court heard arguments Tuesday testing the constitutionality of a Bush-era regulation that allows the Federal Communications Commission to levy stiff fines on broadcasters for the use of vulgar language or nude images. The rule applies to radio and over TV network broadcasts over the air, but not to cable television. Several justices questioned how the FCC determines what is indecent. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg noted the FCC found swearing in the Steven Spielberg World War II film Saving Private Ryan was not indecent, but that swear words uttered by musicians in a documentary by Martin Scorsese about blues musicians were. It allowed networks to broadcast nudity in Spielberg's film Schindler's List, but not a few seconds of partial nudity in the TV program NYPD Blue.
During the hearing, Justice Elena Kagan added, quote, "The way that this policy seems to work, it's like nobody can use dirty words or nudity except for Steven Spielberg." Well, to discuss the FCC regulations on decency and more broadly media consolidation, the freedom of the Internet, and the issues around good journalism, we're joined by the FCC's 7th longest-serving commissioner, Michael Copps. He served 2 terms with the Federal Communications Commission starting in 2001 and has just retired in the last month. We welcome you to Democracy Now!, Commissioner Michael Copps. Congratulations on your tenure. Can you talk about, in this last decade that you've been on the FCC, what you think have been the most important developments around communications in this country and the greatest failures?
Well, I think on the accomplishment side, finally we developed a strategy for the deployment of broadband around the country. This is the most opportunity-creating technology perhaps in the history of humankind. It is going to be something that helps us address every problem that is before the country. Every citizen has not only a right to this technology, but an urgent need to be able to obtain it. So for 8 years before the present administration, we were operating under the assumption that the market would get broadband out everywhere, even to those places where there was no reason for the market to go. This is the great infrastructure building challenge of the early part of the 21st century. Just as throughout history, we've had infrastructure challenges with roads and bridges and canals and railroads and highways and electricity and plain old telephone service. Our challenge now is how to figure out how to get broadband to every American, no matter who they are, where they live, or the particular circumstances of their individual lives. We can talk more about that broadband. We're making a little progress finally on internet freedom, open internet, that awful term network neutrality, which I don't like to use. But if we're going to have this broadband technology and have the internet available to everybody, it has to be open to everybody. It has to be accessible to everybody. It can't be run by gatekeepers and toll booth operators. It has to serve the purposes of us all. I would like to have gone farther than the Commission has gone so far, but at least it made a start. Failures, I think, number one, you know, I have a passion on media issues. I'm extremely worried about the future of our media because I think it impinges so directly on the future of our democracy, on the future of self-government. And I think between the private sector and the public sector, we have wreaked untold havoc on the media environment, and I hope we can have an opportunity to talk about that this morning. And then finally, I'll just say I think we have managed to open up the FCC a little bit more so that we're reaching out to stakeholders who don't traditionally have that lawyer or the lobbyist or the fancy packaged briefs to bring to the FCC. We're actually going out and listening to minorities more than we did, to disabilities communities, to Native Americans. And if this is going to be a consumer protection agency, which is supposed to be, you have to always keep working on that. None of this de-emphasizes the excessive clout that big corporations and big money wield in Washington right now. I'm saying we're doing a little bit better, but we've still got a long, long way to go.
Well, Commissioner Copps, on the issue of universal broadband policy, why is it that this country has fallen behind when it comes to, compared to many other countries in the world, in terms of citizen access, not only to broadband, but to high-speed broadband?
We forgot how we built America. We always, when we built infrastructure in the past, had the public sector and the private sector working together. The private sector as the lead economic engine, pulling the locomotive, but heading toward a vision, heading toward a national goal when we were building those railroads and becoming a continental power and building the interstate highway system. And then we got off on this tangent beginning in the 80s that the market would solve all of these problems. You didn't need government. You didn't need a vision. So we went from being first or second in broadband in 2001 when I joined the Federal Communications Commission to now 15th, 20th, 24th. I don't know precisely where. It depends on whose ratings you read, but I know wherever we are, it's down there where your country and mine should never be finding itself.
Well, what about
so you have to have a strategy. We didn't have the strategy and a sense of mission. Even now, although the Commission has reformed universal service, which is the system that subsidizes telephones for rural areas and low-income areas, we've got to see this not as a problem that jiggering with the universal service system can resolve. This has to be a national vision. Somebody has to say, this stuff is really important to the future of the United States of America if we're going to create jobs, become competitive in the world economy, create opportunity for all of our citizens.
What about that? I don't know if people in the United States understand the level to which in countries throughout Europe and in Asia as well, there is universal access to broadband. It's sort of like being able to go to a public school. But in this country, the large swaths of the country that don't have access to this, that it's a wholly issue of private enterprise and who can afford to get online.
Right. Well, it's a two-pronged problem. It's a question of deployment and getting the connections out there, wireline, wireless, fiber, what it is, and also it's a question of adoption. People need to understand how important this is. I am a strong proponent that one of our national priorities needs to be digital or media or news literacy, call it whatever you want, educating all of us, particularly the young children. I'd like to see a K through 12 digital literacy, media literacy program where you teach folks not only how to use this stuff for their own advancement, but also what to look out for and what to trust and what's a trustworthy news site, what's a reliable one, what's news, what's opinion, what's fact, what's rumor. So media literacy is high on the list of our national needs so people can really understand how important this is. If they're going to find a job, you don't find a job anymore by stuffing your resume in an envelope and sending it off to a Fortune 500 company. They won't even look at it. They hire only online when they hire.
Well, Commissioner Copps, I'd like to ask you about another aspect of the same broadband issue, which is wireless. One of the last decisions or cases that you were involved with was the T-Mobile, AT&T, the AT&T's attempt to merge with T-Mobile, and the increasing importance of wireless smartphones in terms of how people get their information and their data, and the issue of whether internet freedom or what people call net neutrality will be preserved in wireless communications.
Well, I certainly hope so. That was one of the shortfalls when the Commission addressed network neutrality, that the majority concluded that it was a different technology and was not ready to have those rules applied to it. I disagree strongly with that. Every day, thousands and thousands of people are disconnecting the landline and going wireless. A huge part of the future of the broadband internet is going to be wireless. So we need to be technology neutral. We need to be working with fiber where fiber is appropriate. With wireline, with satellite in those places where it is, but we need to realize that you have to have rules of the road, and I think wireless is far enough along where it should be expected to be open access, internet freedom. Otherwise, we'll have the wireless network built out, and it'll be exempt from all of these rules, and you'll end up with toll booths and gatekeepers, and you will have badly beaten down the whole historic potential of the Internet to improve our lives.
Michael Copps, we're going to break and then come back to this discussion. Afterwards, we'll be talking about policy in Iran. We'll be joined by Trita Parsi, who has a new book out called A Single Roll of the Dice, Obama's Diplomacy with Iran. But now it's Michael Copps, who's just retired from the Federal Communications after more than a decade of service. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. Back in a minute.